Hi everyone, Alexandra Joe at Jupiter Returns here with your weekly astrology reports. Thanks so much for watching once more. And yeah, intense times. Yesterday we had this peak moment that astrologers have been looking forward to for really quite some time now. This, of course, was the perfection of the conjunction of the planets Saturn and Pluto in the sign of Capricorn, Saturn's home ground of Capricorn. This, of course, is these planets are slower moving planets, so this is something that's actually affecting us over a longer period of time. So this isn't necessarily all done and dusted, on the day. Very much the opposite, in fact, although the exact peak of this moment in time, whoops, sorry, my glasses have gone, the peak moment is essentially what it was, just a peak in a much longer situation. So that longer situation is essentially the closing, the final end of one chapter of doing things, and as we slowly start beginning a different way of doing things. So wherever Capricorn is in your chart, find that house that's relevant, because this is where things are coming to a close and things are beginning again. So essentially what we have, and if you watched last week, you'll know that these conjunctions happen infrequently, let's say, every sort of 35, 36-ish kind of years. What's rare about this particular one, though, of course, is in the sign of Capricorn. That hasn't happened since the Protestant Reformation. And if we look at what that tells us, we can clearly identify what we find happening right now, particularly here in the UK. So Saturn, Capricorn, it's all about structure. It's all about, tradition, things that have stood the test of time. Saturn loves stability. So any kind of authority structure, any power structure, because that's Pluto's kind of involvement in this as well, to a certain extent. Power structures, what has really been in charge, okay? Pluto's involvement essentially is about this must and shall be changed. There's no debating with Pluto. Change is going to happen, and it's a very profound, often crisis-provoking energy. So what do we have with the Protestant Reformation? Well, we had the ruling authority. So Saturn at that point was the church, the Catholic Church, the Pope, as the leader. And the change point, the crisis was, dissolving that system. Now, the system didn't disappear altogether, but we kind of changed, the way that we saw that power, that authority. We changed our relationship to it, and everything that happened as a consequence of that. So it was this very defining period of one thing coming to an end and then something new taking its place. And that's the whole MO of Pluto. It just wants something better. Like, okay, these things that stand the test of time, they also can sometimes outstay their welcome. So they hang around for a little bit longer than when they're doing good for. So Pluto comes along and Pluto says, okay, it's time to go now, in the nicest possible way, but it actually isn't with Pluto. You're going, and there's no bones about it. And sometimes these things need a shove. So Pluto gives that shove, but essentially it's all about that we're ready for something better. This is this point in time where we take a leap forward. We take a real big stride in terms of the evolutionary progress that we're making. So it's actually very, very exciting time. It's this really hopeful and optimistic time, even though with these energies, there can be a sense of fear, because change is always fear-provoking. We like to know what's happening. It gives us a sense of control over things, when fundamentally we don't have any control. We're floating around in space on a rock. But as human beings, we need that kind of attachment to something that feels solid and real and lasting. So yeah, so this is great. This is a moment in time where something new is trying to move us into a better direction. So the what we're seeing here, of course, in the UK is the established power structure being the monarchy, the royal family. I think Mercury's influence in this changing of this power structure is really Mercury is a symbol of youth. Mercury likes things that are newer, freshness, like it gets bored, essentially. It's a busy energy, a busy, youthful, kind of trickster energy. And so it's kind of a clash, as I mentioned in my synopsis that I did of all of the eclipses of this year. A year ago, I talked about this being this clash of the new versus the old. And that's precisely what we've got in this situation. You know, young members of the royal family saying, actually, this isn't for us anymore. This is stale. This is old. We need to use this for a different purpose. And it needs to change. And so with Saturn, that, you know, they're making their departure, and it's provoked this crisis in this long established power structure and authority structure. So we can clearly see, you know, the comparison with the last time this happened in history. And of course, there's other things going on around the world too, that are a reflection of the influence of these planets. For example, Iran, that's now turned into a situation where it's the people that are taking to the streets and taking on that authority. And the thing to understand is, with these kind of energies, there is so much determination. You know, this is all happening in an earth sign. We've got Uranus down there in an earth sign as well. That's a lot of very, very strong, unshakable, kind of very, very determined energy. So there's this huge determined force back against the authority structure that there is in Iran after the action, the shooting down of the aircraft last week, which was when we had the difficult aspects between Mars and Uranus, and that volatile, explosive energy that I was discussing at that time. So that's just a way for you to see what's going on out there. But of course, we also need to pay attention to what's going on in here. That's the real key thing for you as an individual. So today then, Monday, we have the sun now moving into that exact degree of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, 22 degrees of Capricorn. So if you have planets around the degree of 22 degrees in either Capricorn, Aries, Cancer, or Libra, that's where the most tension is going to be felt. So the sun's involvement in this situation really is saying, shining a light. It's really, really exposing this even more, this situation. It's illuminating things as it does. It's potentially bringing some warmth to the situation, I suppose, but essentially it's focus. It's really focusing people's attention. And of course, we're getting a lot of press coverage of the situation today. The other thing to bear in mind is this is the individual. So this is about, you know, what are the individual's needs within this system, within this structure? How is the individual catered for? You know, you look at Harry and Meghan and they're saying, well, you know, we have our own lives, we have our own needs, we have our own desires, we have our own objectives to achieve. This is Capricorn. What do you want to achieve in life? You know, what are you heading for? What's the status that you want to place yourself in terms of your society? And they're saying, well, actually, this differs from just being a member of the royal family. As an individual, they have their own family to provide for. And fundamentally, it's about security. Capricorn and Cancer, as I've mentioned before, is about our security needs. And so given his history, losing his mother the way he did, we can understand why he now wants to take care of his wife and children. So how do we translate that to ourselves? What are your individual needs? Where are your individual needs being catered to by the structures in your life, and where are they not? And so the sun's involvement today is going to help you to see that and to be able to take steps that are necessary, that really are about you and where you fit into that and what part you play in it as well. Later on today, we have some wonderful news. We've got Venus has been moving through the sign of Aquarius, and later on today, around 6 p.m. tonight, she's going to move into the sign of Pisces. She's so happy in Pisces. This is beautiful. We all need this energy right now. Venus is considered to be exalted in the sign of Pisces, and what that means is that she absolutely expresses love in the most beautiful way. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It's therefore considered to be the least egotistical. So it's the furthest kind of point from the very kind of me-centered kind of mindset. So in Pisces, she tends to have more of a spiritual, compassionate, unconditional approach to love. She loves irrespective of any of those kinds of demands of the ego. It's a hugely creative position as well. Wonderful for poetry, for creative writing, for art, for all of these kinds of pursuits, and just generally bringing a greater sense of connection and warmth and love to all of us, which is something we absolutely need right now. So I'm really, really happy to see Venus there, and I hope that brings us a little bit more to feel good about. She's going to be not just affecting Pisceans or people that have placements in Pisces. Of course, she's now going to positively affect all the water signs. So Cancers, you've been having a rough time of it lately. Venus is going to shine her love over to you and also to those Scorpios as well. So that's some good news too. As we move into Tuesday the 14th, then we have the moon moving into Virgo. Okay, now the moon in Virgo, it's kind of detail orientated. Okay, Virgo likes precision. So here the moon wants a lot of attention to detail. We are feeling the need to get ordered, to get clean, to clean things up, to just really nail down with precision. So there could be a background of that, but where we get into difficulty is that when she moves into later into the day, she's going to actually move into an opposition there with Neptune in Pisces. Neptune very strong in the home sign of Pisces there. So what this can do is make that desire for neatness and tidiness and order and control. And with Neptune in a challenging aspect like this, we potentially could see a real misinterpretation or a blurring, essentially, of the details, of the facts, of the clean, neat order of things. So there's a real need for precision at the same time as we have Neptune saying, I'm not sure. So it's really a time to be very cautious about anything that needs some fine print. You know, anything contractual, anything, you know, that you're really going to kind of, that needs some very, very clear, that you need to be clear about. You don't want to misrepresent yourself. That's the kind of situation that could come up here. It's not something that's intentional, although sometimes that can happen, but in a situation like this can be with another person. So our interactions with other people, meanings can get blurred. Either we can present them in a blurred way, or they can just be received by the other person in a misunderstood way. So it's rife for misunderstandings. So just bear that in mind in all of your interactions tomorrow, including what you read, what you listen to, conversations that you have. Just keep that in mind. Actually, things might not be presented quite as they would be if this wasn't in the background. So watch out for that. Now, Wednesday the 15th, we have Venus will have moved on a little bit into Pisces there. And do try and get out if you can, if the skies are clear in the evening. There's beautiful views of Venus at the moment. She's coming closer and closer to Earth all the time now, right up until when she goes retrograde later on in the year in Gemini. So between now and then, she really is coming closer to us. And in the sign of her exaltation, as an evening star, you'll see her towards the west, just as the sun is going down. She's so beautiful, she's so clear. This is a wonderful time to just create that connection with her. You know, it's a two-way process. I'm sure that we can create relationship with all of the planets. And so, you know, get out there and just speak to her, you know, and say, look, you know, this is where I'm at with love. This is where I'm at with connection. This is where I'm at with money, with pleasure, with my values, okay? Foster that relationship with her. It will be so much easier in the sign of Pisces, where she'll be for a good couple of weeks. So yeah, get out there and have a look. Where was I? So yeah, on Wednesday, she's going to move in then to a supportive aspect that's called a sextile with the planet Uranus, okay? So Uranus, as I mentioned last week, is just stationed direct. Okay, so when a planet stations, it's slowed down. And when it's slowed down, we're feeling the influence of that a bit more. So that's why the involvement last week was so potent and explosive. This is a supportive connection, and I love this. This is exciting. This is when we bring together the out there, crazy, you know, unconventional energies of Uranus with the love and connection and creativity of Venus. So that's really exciting. So this is the sort of energy that you know, you can just fall in love at first sight. It's literally, oh, didn't see that coming. Wow. You know, you can suddenly meet someone. It doesn't necessarily mean that that would last a long time because Uranus tends to be short and fast. Okay, it's quite intense. But it's, so, you know, you can literally like love at first sight. But yeah, it's like there 1 minute and gone the next. So it's very, very fast. It's got that energy that just wants to create a lightning bolt. So it's that kind of energy. It can be very, very exciting. It's a great time to be out socializing and making new connections with people, making new friends. Absolutely perfect kind of energy for that. And if you're involved in any creative, like new projects or any artwork or anything that requires that Venusian quality to it, then this helps to bring some real kind of eccentricity, is a great word with Uranus. It's like, well, we don't really do things the normal way. So it may be that you create a connection with a group or a person or a situation or a piece of work that you're involved with. You meet that from a really different place than you ordinarily do, which can produce some absolutely stunningly creative breakthrough pieces. Just consider, for example, William Blake. He had this in his natal chart. So that's the kind of genius creativity that we're talking about. So yeah, wonderful energy, exciting stuff, but just bear in mind if there's a new romance starting, that's wonderful if you just want something short term, but otherwise then just bear that in mind, that it's not something essentially that usually lasts. So try and capture that energy though. Try and put that into something that you're working on, that you're crafting, a labor of love. That should really help. So as we move into Thursday then, we've got Mercury now finished off his role. His involvement in the whole Capricorn situation is done now. He's moving into Aquarius. So, and again, this is more Uranian energy, Uranus being one of the rulers of the sign of Aquarius. So here, our thinking and our communicating style can really take on a more original that's really what Mercury here is doing. It's saying, okay, let's look at things from a different perspective, a completely different point of view than we would ordinarily do. Mercury in Capricorn, when he's back there, he's very diligent. He's like, we've got to get everything right, and I'm going to think about everything and consider everything over and over before I say it, because it has to be absolutely impeccable. Well, Mercury tends to be a little bit less constrained in Uranus because it needs that freedom. Uranus is all about freedom, and it needs that freedom to just be able to come up with new ideas, fresh ideas, exciting ideas. So I really like, I have Mercury in Aquarius in my natal chart, so maybe I'm biased. But, it helps you to just open the mind and explore things a little more from new perspectives. So enjoy that. And then we have the moon moving into the sign of Libra. This, of course, with the moon moving into Libra, we have the square aspect being created to Capricorn. And there's so much energy. So it's going to look more like that at this point. So there's just so much going on there, spread right throughout the sign of Capricorn. The sun has moved on a little way by now. We've got Saturn and Pluto still together. We've got Jupiter at the first. So, pretty much every decan is got something going on in there. So as the moon moves pretty much all the way through Libra, and the moon is in each sign of the zodiac for about 2 and a bit days. So all the way through, she's essentially going to be squaring off with all of these energies. Okay, so that's going to be another time when we have perhaps another hit of exposing what is going on with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. That's usually a difficult aspect, and when she comes in to square the sun, it's what we call the crisis of integration. So this is the last quarter square of the moon, and this is really the time when we decide, okay, what's staying and what's going, what's necessary for us as we move forward, and what is it really time to leave behind now. And this is kind of that crisis point where we can often find ourselves pushed into making that decision by some kind of challenging situation, or just an internal pressure. The square aspects often are just like, it's internal irritation. So watch out for that, and essentially try and capture that energy and say, okay, I need to make a decision. I need to, and that will help you gain some control over any emotions that you have in this situation. But moon in Libra, she's trying to find balance, she's trying to find peace, she's trying to find equality. That's what Libra's all about. So we have this situation. This can be the point when we say, okay, how do we keep both sides happy to some extent? How does everyone get their needs met? Well, sometimes that's not always possible, even with the best will in the world. So this is that decision point where we say, actually, there's going to have to be some things that get left behind in order for us to move forward. And if you're really, really ready to move forward into that new structure, into that new power, into that new way of doing things, then you know, this is the point where we say, sorry, that's got to be left behind. And then we can move forward. So Thursday and into Friday, that's what we're going to be, that's the process that we're really going to be going through. So as we move into the weekend, then what we have is the moon, as she's now past the quarter square. This really is that time of release. This is the point. This is the perfect time, if you're working with the lunar cycles, to really start that process of release now. She's in the closing stages of her cycle. Now she's going to be in the sign of Scorpio. This is considered to be the sign of her fall, so she's not super comfortable in this territory. And essentially what Scorpio is all about is getting right into the deepness, into the darkness, into the pits. Okay, it's getting into the hidden and finding it. And the moon is a luminary, so she's lighting that up. She's showing what's there. So we've got an energy here where it's an exposing time. It's a time of really getting into the muck and gore and saying, okay, this really is a time to purge the worst of what's there. And I think this is going to be quite a powerful time with everything else that's going on. Initially, when she moves into Scorpio, she's going to have a lovely connection with Venus over there in sister water sign, but she's moving very quickly. So it's just interesting to me that configuration will be taking place at this point. I wonder if that's just kind of offering up some compassion and forgiveness into the situation, some real understanding and empathy. So this isn't the kind of violent release. This isn't the release that's kind of like, I'm getting rid of. It's more, I'm really grateful for everything that's happened. As difficult as it was, it's made me who I am. It's more that kind of energy. Okay, so it's just, I think the involvement of Venus is kind of assisting us really to say, you know, whatever we think of this power structure, of this authority, and how that is showing up in our own personal lives, you know, the structure, the authority, those challenges that it's created has given us so much strength. Anyone that's had a personal reading with me, any of my clients or students, if we've come across Saturn in our conversations, they will know that I talk about Saturn as the spiritual personal trainer, and I talk about it that way because it's about mastery. Okay, so he's trying to build strength, and the only way you can build strength is to create resistance, to push back against. All right, if you go into the gym and the weights just go like that, then you're going to stay pretty weak. You need some pushback. So this is what Saturn's doing for us all on a spiritual level. So he's trying to create resistance and forcing us to just repeat something over and over again. Like, come up against a hurdle, push it down. Oh no, there's another one, push it down. Oh no, you know, this, it's building resilience, it's building tenacity, it's building our spiritual muscle. And, you know, Saturn rules time. So this is, you know, this is about maturity. It's about age. You know, someone said to me recently, oh, don't worry, age is just a number, as though it was something to pity. And I corrected them and I said, no, it's absolutely not. It's maturity, it's experience, it's wisdom. It's something actually to be really proud of and to really embrace. Not something to think like, oh, don't worry. You know, I'm going through my midlife transits like right now, and so that's the transition, you know, into the older part of life. And absolutely, Saturn's toughness and obstacles create that maturity, create that wisdom. And so we can bring that into this situation. actually, if I hadn't had those challenges, if I hadn't had that darkness that we can have with Scorpio, if I hadn't had that awful crisis, then I wouldn't have developed these skills that I now have. So with the moon going into Scorpio this weekend, it's a perfect time, absolutely perfect time for you to go within and just have a real good root around, because Scorpio loves research. It loves to get in deep and find out all of the things that sit behind things, in the unseen, in the hidden, in the pushed down. All right, so have a root about and make sense of it all as it applies to you. Give it a bit of forgiveness, give it a bit of gratitude. You know, we've got Jupiter up there teaching us about wisdom and gratitude in this scenario as well. Bring some gratitude to the situation in the way that we are then releasing, because the moon's now moving closer to the sun, and that means that next week we're going to have a beautiful, exciting new moon in Aquarius. And so this is the time to make space. Okay, it's time for the old to go as we move out of Capricorn season, and time for something very, very fresh and exciting and new. So good luck with your work, creating space with kindness and compassion. Enjoy the wonderful influence that Venus is going to have on us all, and have a really beautiful week. Thank you so much for watching. Hope this has been helpful. Give me a like, I love a share as always, and I will see you again next week. Thank you, bye.